The Rebellious Princess. I was the daughter of the Grant family. My father controlled half the city's underworld. Gunfire and bloodshed were the currency of his business, the leverage he held over everyone. And I was meant to enjoy the wealth and privilege that came with it, to never know a day's worry. Until my 12th birthday, everything changed. My parents brought home a girl who looked disturbingly like me, claiming she was my long-lost twin sister, Karen. She hadn't had an easy life, wandering outside our world. My parents' guilt washed over them like a tidal wave. To make amends, they poured everything they could into her hands. And Karen, as if she were owed the world, simply pointed a finger. My room, my cherished dolls, my favorite dresses, even my parents' love and attention, everything that was mine was now hers. Then she set her sights on Marco, the youngest, most promising Mafia boss in the city. She demanded that I give up my position as his fiancé. This time, I refused. I rebelled with a fury I had never known. After a massive fight with my parents, I set the curtains on fire, smashed 5 cars in our garage, and destroyed half the house. In a fit of rage, my father sent me to Macro. Turn Seraphina into a proper lady, then she won't have to come back. If she fails, she'll never return. My world plunged into darkness. But I wasn't about to give up. I turned my fury on Macro. I splattered paint across his ceilings, floors, walls, and all his expensive furniture. And he grabbed me in the bathroom, pulling me tight against his chest, his hot lips pressing against the side of my neck. Sarah, be a good girl. Sarah? My parents hadn't called me that since Karen came home. They would only ever yell my full name, Seraphina. A sharp ache hit me, and I returned his kiss, turning all my resentment and pain into wild, urgent desire. Though he seemed cold on the surface, Marco always cared for me in a way no one else did. He remembered my preferences without me having to say a word. He'd shield me from a troublesome suitor at a dinner party. Once, when a landslide buried our car, he dug me out with his bare hands and carried me for 5 miles until we found help. Slowly, I stopped fighting him. I was falling in love. One night, I walked to his study with a gift I had carefully prepared, intending to ask him about our wedding. But at the door, I overheard him on a video call. Marco, your fiancé's been so much better. When are you going to marry Karen? Karen was there for me when I was at my lowest. It's a debt I have to repay. Just make sure Sarah behaves so she doesn't get in Karen's way. You seem so close to Seraphina, I thought she was going to be your wife. There was a faint amusement in Marco's tone. That spoiled little girl? She's not fit to be my wife. Each word struck like a blade, piercing straight through my chest. My heart stopped. Marco's heart had always belonged to Karen. And I was just a willful playmate to be trained. I threw the gift aside and locked myself in my room, shivering in the darkness. I once believed that lacking my parents' love didn't matter, because I had Marco. But the man I thought was my only light in the dark, was nothing but a fantasy. Everything I had, everything I trusted, turned out to be nothing. The door creaked open, and the lights flicked on. Marco leaned over, cupping my chin, meeting my desperate gaze with a faint smile on his face. So, planning to tempt me into bed again? Chapter 2. Macro's thumb traced along my lips as he leaned in, his warm breath brushing my face. If I hadn't just overheard that call, I would have thrown myself into his arms, completely lost to his touch. But now, all I felt was deep disgust. Get lost, I said, my voice ice. I returned home and told my father and Karen, I'm willing to give up my engagement to Marco. Karen can have him. They exchanged a glance, and a smirk crept onto their somber faces. My father sneered, looks like Macro's discipline worked after all. I kept my expression neutral. Give me 2 billion. My father's smile froze. Are you insane? You want me to go bankrupt? A faint smile touched my lips. 2 billion to get the chance to marry Marco. You'll make that back 100 times over from his casinos, his illicit trades, and all the businesses you can't touch. 2 billion is nothing. But if you don't want to, then forget it. Karen timidly tugged at his sleeve, her eyes watering. Father, just ignore her. She's only trying to cause trouble. My father's face twisted with reluctance, but he finally clenched his jaw and agreed, cursing under his breath. You were raised for nothing. Ungrateful little brat. Karen's far more sensible. Before he could finish, a heavy glass ashtray flew at my head. I instinctively raised my arm, the impact jarring my bones. The ashtray curved through the air and hit Karen's forehead with a sickening thud. Blood ran down her face. She screamed. My father roared behind me, "Look what you've done." Without looking back, I walked out of the study, pulled out my phone, and booked a flight out of the country in 2 weeks. My home had become a place not worth staying in. I looked around the room, remembering when Karen first arrived. I had felt so much pity for her, sharing all my favorite things. But her return gift? She shattered my father's most cherished possession, his horse racing trophy, the symbol of his pride, and pinned the blame on me. She smashed my mother's beloved jewels and hid the fragments under my pillow, ensuring I would be the one to pay. She even threw herself down the stairs, not once, and whispering that I was the one who pushed her. Time and again, I tried to defend myself. But my parents refused to listen. In their eyes, I was the jealous, spoiled child. Only Karen was their pure, innocent daughter. Just as I reached the door, Macro came in. He froze when he saw me. Karen rushed from behind and threw herself into Macro's arms, crying. Macro's gaze darkened. "What did you do to Karen?" he asked, blocking my way. "You saw it yourself." I pushed past him, my heart filled with disgust. I finally understood why he always took Karen's side. As I walked out into the courtyard, someone struck me from behind. My vision went black. I woke up to the sound of the wind, every muscle in my body tense. I opened my eyes and found myself on a narrow platform, hanging 40 stories above the ground on the side of Macro's office building. My vertigo hit me instantly, and I froze, unable to move. My heart hammered against my ribs. I tried to scream, but only a choked gasp escaped my lips. Then I heard Karen's voice from an open window. "Macro said if he doesn't discipline you, you'll never become a lady. This is a lesson for you. Let's see if you'll dare to cross me again." She laughed and walked away. My fingers trembled as I repeatedly called Macro's number, but he never answered. Instead, a few photos from Karen popped up in my chat. They showed Macro carefully cleaning her wound and putting a bandage on it. It was just a small cut, but his eyes were filled with deep affection. My chest ached as if a giant hand was tearing it apart. Macro knows I have a fear of heights. He wouldn't do this to me. He wouldn't. I tried to convince myself. But the self-deception was too weak. I had thought his care was all mine. But compared to what he showed Karen, it was nothing. He didn't even ask for my side of the story. Based on Karen's word alone, he had hung me on the side of a 40-story building just as punishment for her. My breath became more and more difficult. The wind cut through me, making my body shiver, but my heart was colder than ever. Finally, as I began to lose consciousness, the platform was slowly pulled back. Through my blurred vision, I saw Macro. He scooped me into his arms. I struggled with every ounce of strength I had. Disgust, resistance. He held me tightly and whispered in a low voice, "It's fine. I've got you." Chapter 3. Tears welled up in my eyes, but almost immediately, I found it ridiculous. In my darkest, most terrifying moments, Marco had always been there to say those words. Those same words that had once given me comfort, courage, and a deep, aching sense of belonging. But did he really love me? Just one whispered word from Karen, and he would punish me without a second thought, not caring if I lived or died. "Don't touch me," I thrashed wildly, but his grip on my hands was unbreakable. In a fit of desperation, I bit him. He frowned and carried me back to his house, and wrapped me in a blanket on the sofa. I was about to yell at him, but he handed me a cup of hot cocoa. "Drink this," he said softly. "You need to warm up." I curled up, keeping as far away as I could, my body still trembling. "Stay out of my business. Just leave me alone," I snapped. He smiled lightly. "Leave you alone? You really think you can live without me?" His eyes and the slight curve of his lips were filled with the smug satisfaction of a victor. I had hoped he would be my beacon, but he had brought me only deeper into the darkness. Seeing me silent, Macro asked, "You hurt Karen today. What's your side of the story?" "You saw it," I said flatly. "And you wouldn't believe me anyway." I had long given up on explaining myself. From my parents to him, no one cared about my side of the story. "I would believe you," he said. "But Karen is your sister. She's so fragile. Why do you have so much hostility toward her?" I laughed, letting tears slip from the corner of my eyes. This was his idea of believing me. "Mind your own business," I shot back, storming into my room and slamming the door. For the next 2 days, Macro ignored me. From the constant photos Karen sent, I could tell he was there with her, comforting her. I didn't care anymore. In 2 weeks, once all the paperwork was done, I could leave. On the day of my college thesis defense, I woke early. I felt a rush of excitement as completing this step would bring me closer to leaving. Macro sat among the judges as the college's sponsor, but I knew he wasn't there for me. Karen went first. "Good morning, professors. The title of my thesis is..." I froze. I jumped up and interrupted her. "This is my thesis. It's exactly the same as mine." A murmur of confusion rippled through the room. Karen skips class all the time and never puts in half the effort Seraphina does. If their papers turn out the same, guess who's been copying? Plagiarizing a grad thesis? She'll get kicked out of college for that. She's got some nerve. Karen's eyes filled with feigned tears. "I wrote this myself. I stayed up nights. Don't you dare slander me." I was about to argue, but Macro's icy glare cut me off. "This is a serious occasion," he said, his voice flat. "Don't cause a scene." My heart sank. I finally understood. I grabbed my water cup and slammed it into Karen's laptop. A wisp of smoke rose and Karen screamed, covering her ears. I ignored Macro and talked to Karen. "Since you wrote it yourself, you should be able to defend it without your laptop." A flicker of panic crossed Karen's face. "The thesis is long. I don't remember it all clearly." "Really?" I smiled. "Then let me go first. Professors, my thesis is divided into the following sections." Karen's face turned pale. She stumbled toward Macro and collapsed in front of him. Marco held her and glared at me as if I were some evil witch. The moment I finished my defense, Macro shoved me into a car and dragged me into his office. I was fuming, and I needed an outlet. "Marco, mind telling me why my thesis is showing up on her laptop?" His voice was cold. "Sarah, I've spoiled you too much. You went out of line today. How dare you humiliate Karen in front of everyone?" Karen stood behind him. Her triumphant gaze cut into me like a knife, twisting deep in my chest. Was defending myself, out of line. I grabbed a golf club from the corner and swung it hard at his cigar box, the family crest, and every expensive object in his office. Karen screamed and fled the office, while Macro watched coldly, doing nothing. Until the office was in ruins, papers and shards of glass scattered everywhere, I dropped the club, panting. "Enough smashing?" he asked. "I still want to smash you." My phone lit up with a flight reminder. I fumbled to cover it, but it was too late. Macro's face darkened. "A flight? Where are you going?" "None of your business. I'm going on a beach trip with a hot guy. So what?" I snatched my phone and stormed out. He seized my hand, slammed me against his desk, and ripped the zipper on my dress down to the bottom. "Looks like I haven't disciplined you for too long. You've forgotten who I am." My bare skin burned with shame, and for the first time, his body made me recoil in fear. I sobbed, "Let go. This is the office. Not here." Macro leaned closer, voice cold and commanding. "You need to remember who's in charge. Everything depends on my mood." A chill ran through me. I realized, with a sickening clarity, that I was just something for him to manipulate. Tears streamed down uncontrollably, my body trembling with each sob. He hesitated for a moment, then zipped up, his tone softening slightly. "I'll let you off today. But next time, you won't be so lucky." Chapter 4. I froze on the desk. It took a while for me to realize that I was safe. I wiped away my tears and walked out, not even sparing him a glance. As I reached the lobby on the first floor, I saw Karen. She sneered, "Did you really think provoking Macro would end well? He'll only hate you more. And I'll make sure you're completely kicked out of the Grant family." I shot her a glance from the corner of my eye. "Only trash like you would think that pathetic dump is worth anything." Karen's face twisted in rage. She grabbed my arm. "Say that again. I'll say it 1,000,000 times. You're trash. Now let go." As we struggled, there was a loud crash from above. A giant chandelier detached from the ceiling and came crashing down on us. Karen's scream pierced my ears. In that instant, Macro dashed under the falling light and yanked Karen into his arms. I saw the pure panic and desperation in his eyes, right before a blinding pain consumed me. The shattered chandelier rained down, its fragments mingling with my blood, staining the floor. Every nerve in my body screamed in agony. I lifted my head with the last of my strength. Macro was bent over Karen, whispering to her. She was crying, but when her eyes flicked to mine, the smug triumph in them cut deeper than any wound. I let my head drop, a broken laugh slipping past my lips even as tears burned down my face, my throat choked with blood and bitterness, pain stealing every breath. When I woke up again, I was in a hospital bed. The room was empty, my wounds burning painfully. The door to the room across the corridor was ajar, and I could see my parents gathered around Karen's bed. Macro was there, too, carefully adjusting her bed with meticulous care. I watched them, tears blurring my vision. I thought I had no tears left to cry, but my heart still ached, pierced by 1,000 needles. A notification popped up on my phone. Only 5 days until I could leave. I clenched the phone, swallowing back my tears. Later, Macro came into my room. He stroked my hair and asked, "Does it hurt? You have so many cuts. You've always hated pain the most." There was concern in his gaze, and even a hint of guilt. If it had been before, I would have cried, demanded to know why he hadn't come to save me first. But now, I just closed my eyes, not a word left to say. Macro was silent for a moment. "It hurts too much, right? Don't say anything if you don't want to. I'll be here with you." He really pushed aside all his work and staying by my side every day. But I no longer filled the air with chatter. I ate in silence, slept in silence, and waited in silence for the day I'd finally leave. 4 days before leaving, I overheard Karen on the phone at the end of the hallway. "Those two idiots love me so much, they'll never know the real Karen died a long time ago." I snapped. A horrifying thought seized me, and I rushed forward, grabbing her arm. "You're not my sister. You're an imposter." She feigned a look of surprise and then smiled, screaming, "Please, don't," and she let herself fall down the stairs. In that instant, Macro rushed forward, scooping her up. The way he looked at me sent a chill down my spine. "How many times have I told you not to clash with Karen? You embarrassed her at your thesis defense, and now you attacked her again. You've gone too far." His voice pressed down on me. "She's a fake. She's not my sister." Macro's eyes were filled with a chilling indifference. He turned to his men. "Lock her up for 3 days so she really thinks about what she's done." Tears streamed down my face. "I did nothing wrong. Macro. Don't lock me up." He lifted my chin, and there was no pity in his eyes. "Sarah, you've disappointed me." The next 3 days were the most agonizing of my life. My father came to the basement where I was locked up and whipped me with no mercy, while Karen laughed, enjoying every moment. "We gave you all our love, and this is how you treat your sister. Thank God you gave up your engagement to Macro, so you don't have to embarrass our family anymore. I'll give you the money. Take it and get lost. You are no longer a Grant." When the whip broke and my father grew exhausted, I lay on the floor, bleeding and barely breathing. Macro came to see me, but he only looked at me from afar. 3 days here is just a small lesson. If you don't learn, there will be more serious consequences. My skin was ripped open, and the pain stole my breath. A small smile tugged at my lips, and my heart no longer ached. 3 days later, I was bathed and dressed, with all my wounds hidden, before Macro came to pick me up. He probably thought I had just slept in the dark for 3 days. But when he saw my face, he paused, a flicker of guilt in his eyes. "Learned your lesson yet? 3 days without food isn't too harsh." I only nodded, silent, never looking at him again. As soon as his men dropped me off at the hospital, I slipped out a side door and went straight to the airport. After checking my bank account, I tossed my phone card into the trash can and boarded the plane without looking back. Chapter 5. Macro POV. I sat in the meeting room. It felt as if something vital was slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't stop it. My fist clenched on instinct, but there was nothing to hold on to. I forced myself to steady my breathing and carried on with the meeting. After 3 relentless days of meetings, I had pushed aside every voice of dissent and secured complete control of the Caruso family. Friends and allies offered congratulations, but the only number I was waiting for remained silent. The last message from Sarah was 6 weeks ago. How was she? Was she okay? In the past 6 days, I had only managed to see her for a few stolen minutes. God, I missed her. She was a little wildcat, curling into me when she was pleased, while clawing at me when she wasn't. When her father first approached me, asking me to discipline his wild daughter, I was tempted to refuse. But the thought of our pending betrothal changed my mind. I decided it would be mutually beneficial to have a well-behaved fiancé, and so I accepted. I still remember that day. Sarah was in a scarlet dress, sitting across from me like a rose with thorns. And the day she moved into my house, she turned it upside down. She splattered every room with vibrant paint, turning my house into a wild canvas of colors. Then, while I wasn't looking, she smeared lipstick on my shirt collar, setting me up to look like a fool at the board meeting. While I slept, she painted my nails a bold, cherry red. And she stuck glittery sequins and mermaid stickers on the back of my phone. Each time I caught a glimpse of her mischievous smile, I felt a kind of strange relief, as if a small part of the crushing weight on my shoulders had been lifted. The chaos she brought was a breath of fresh air in my suffocating world. Every time she tested me with one of her stunts, I would use it as an excuse to take her. I would claim her wherever we were, the bed, the office desk, the backseat of the car, the bathroom. I kissed every inch of her, drawing moans from her lips, letting her melt under my relentless thrusts until her defiance dissolved into surrender. Then, she'd soften into a tame little wildcat, purring in my arms. Without realizing it, I had fallen in love with her. The engagement party was set for tomorrow. Now that I was in absolute control, I could give her anything she wanted. She didn't have to be tamed anymore. She didn't have to be good. She could be as wild and rebellious as she wanted. She was my queen. But my mind drifted back to the dark dungeon where I had last seen her. Her face was ghostly pale, with faint, bruise-like shadows beneath her collarbone. The vibrant fire in her eyes was replaced with a cold, terrifying emptiness. Guilt tore at me. I tried to tell myself she was safe, that my men would make sure she was taken care of. But I didn't dare pull her collar away to look at the bruises. I just ordered my men to have her checked by a doctor. I now felt no triumph from my victory, no joy for our engagement. Just a chilling premonition of something terribly wrong. I unlocked the front door. The house was unnaturally quiet. Sarah should have been there, running to greet me, throwing her arms around my neck, tilting her head for a kiss. I searched every room, but the house was empty. My heart hammered against my ribs as I dialed her number. It went straight to voicemail. I sent her a message. It bounced back. She had blocked me. A cold dread spread through my veins. I immediately called the old Grant. "Is Sarah there?" There was a pause before his voice, dripping with forced cheerfulness, came through. Yes, of course. For the engagement party tomorrow, she will be well-dressed and beautiful." I exhaled in relief. The old man was finally taking care of her. I turned to my assistant, confirming the final arrangements. "Everything is ready, boss. The venue, the catering, the band, the guests. The whole city is buzzing about the biggest event of the year." My assistant sent me a flood of pictures of the venue, decorated exactly to Sarah's taste. It was all so perfect. My heart swelled with a raw, fierce joy. I couldn't sleep a wink that night. The next day, I pushed open the door to the waiting room, holding a bouquet of her favorite flowers and the ring box. A figure in an elegant dress turned to face me. My heart sank. It was Karen, her neck adorned with the diamond necklace I had just paid a fortune for. The one I had told my assistant to give to Sarah several days ago. My breath hitched. Karen? What are you doing here? Where is Sarah? A sneer twisted her beautiful face. I'm Grant, too, Macro. Don't you think I'm a better choice? This way, you don't have to break the engagement, and you can get rid of my troublemaking sister for good. The engagement is with Sarah. Where is she? Karen's smile vanished, replaced with a smirk. She left, took a fat check from my father and sold her place to me. Just like her, right? All she cares about is money. She never cared about you. A sharp pain shot through my chest. My mind reeled, replaying every moment of the recent days, every moment of hers. Karen leaned in, her lips close to my ear. Macro, I know you love me. We're meant to be together. I shoved her away, the rage in my voice barely controlled. Where is she? A flicker of panic crossed her face, but she quickly put on a mask of false innocence. She only ever made you miserable. Father disowned her. Who cares where she went? It felt like a knife tearing through my heart. Rage broke free of its cage. Who the hell told you to do that? I roared. Tears welled in Karen's eyes. I'm sorry, I said, my voice barely a whisper. You'll get compensation, nothing more. I turned and walked away, my mind a blank slate. A feeling of utter panic, a feeling I hadn't felt in years, overtook me. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to find her. Chapter 6. Macro POV. My assistant spoke in a hushed tone. The day Miss Grant arrived at the hospital, she slipped out almost immediately. I snapped my head up, my voice sharp. Why the hell didn't you stop her? Why didn't you tell me? He flinched under my glare. You were busy with the family, and we thought you didn't care about her anymore. My eyes narrowed. Did I ever say those words? He hesitated. No, but it looked that way. You've been gentler with Karen. With Seraphina you've been harsher. Harsher. The word lodged like a knife. And God help me, it was true. I had turned a blind eye when Karen's people dangled her off the 40th floor. I had let him throw her into the dungeon. The dungeon. I stormed out of the conference room and down to the dungeon. The air was thick and damp, and a faint metallic scent of blood filled my nostrils. In a corner, on what could barely be called a bed, lay a white shirt. The same shirt Sarah had been wearing when she was dragged down here. I picked it up, and the stench of blood hit me, full force. The bloodstains were crisscrossed on the fabric, a brutal tapestry of red that soaked through the material. Despite my familiarity with violence, a jolt of horror shot through me, and I dropped the shirt as if it were on fire. My chest heaved, a maelstrom of rage and fear churning inside me. Who did this to her? I said she was only to be held for 3 days, no one was to touch her. I bellowed, the sound echoing off the stone walls. My heart felt like it was being ripped apart, a searing pain that made my whole body tremble. The old Grant, and his other daughter, they came here. The assistant's voice was barely audible. And you didn't tell me? I snarled, a wave of cold fury washing over me. We thought you'd stopped protecting her, he stuttered, fear in his eyes. I didn't waste another second. I pulled up the security feed. The screen flickered to life. A whip cracked again and again against Sarah's back, each strike slicing the air like a blade. She never screamed, and never begged. She only bit her lip until the blood ran, her body rigid with defiance, until, finally, she collapsed. My chest caved in on itself. I couldn't see through the blur in my eyes. No wonder her eyes that day had been so empty, so distant, as if I were already a stranger to her. I pointed at the monitor, my voice a low, dangerous whisper. Drag that old bastard into this hellhole. Whatever Seraphina suffered, he pays back tenfold. My assistant swallowed hard. And another Miss Grant? I closed my eyes, the words a rough rasp in my throat. When I was drowning in the struggle for power, Karen was always there. She offered me comfort and encouragement. I was grateful for that, yes. But the only one I ever loved was Sarah. The moment the words left my mouth, another man burst into the room with a small package. I tore it open, finding a tiny voice recorder inside. I pressed the play button. A familiar voice filled the room, cold and calculating. "Karen's been dead for a long time. So what? Your stupid parents will only believe me. All I have to do is put on a little show, and they'll always side with me. That idiot, Macro? He's no different." The air was sucked from my lungs. A sharp, icy dread pierced my heart. I had defended Karen, shielded her, while Sarah bled. And the truth? She was only an imposter. I thought back to the day Karen fell down the stairs. I remembered Sarah's eyes, the desperate plea for me to believe her, the raw hurt. I had promised I would, but I was a goddamn fool. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the recorder, my hands trembling violently. Get that imposter now. Get a DNA test. Once it's confirmed, she'll pay tenfold. I was left alone in the cold dungeon. I collapsed onto the grimy bed, clutching Sarah's blood-soaked shirt to my chest. The pain was unbearable, a crushing ache that stole my breath. It felt like every ounce of strength had been drained from my body, leaving me hollow and shattered. Chapter 7. Seraphina POV. I lay back on the lounge chair, letting the sea breeze wash over me as I watched the waves roll onto the shore and slip back again. No lectures from my parents. No scheming from Karen. No hard, unyielding face of Macro. The long-lost sense of freedom finally let me relax completely. This was the life I was meant to have. Yet for some reason, my mind betrayed me, and he crept back into my thoughts. I pressed a hand to my chest. At least it didn't hurt anymore. Not the way it used to. The welts across my back hadn't fully healed. Every day I smeared scar cream across them, careful not to tear the skin. Even here, in a swimsuit, I draped a sheer wrap over my shoulders to hide the marks that still mapped my body. A tall figure appeared, casting a shadow over me. I looked up, and my heart seized. Damn it, Macro. His eyes were filled with a raw, desperate relief, like a drowning man who had finally found a buoy. "Sarah," he said, his voice rough and breathless. "I finally found you." I stared at him as if he were a stranger. He looked haggard, his face hollowed out and gaunt. His eyes were haunted, their usual sharp edges replaced by a frantic desperation. He reached for my hand. "You've been gone for a month. I missed you so much. I haven't slept a single night." His words were a frantic tumble, a confession of his own weakness. I pulled my hand away, a flicker of disgust on my face. "I don't know you. Stay away from me." His hand hung in the air, a flash of pain crossing his face. "Sarah, stop being angry. Come home with me. I know I did a lot of things to hurt you, but I promise I won't ever do it again." I let out a cold, cynical laugh. "Come back for what? To watch you defend Karen again? To watch you marry her? You're wrong. I don't love her. Never have." He grabbed my hand again, his eyes welling up with tears. "I've only ever loved you, Sarah." His hand was warm, his grip tight, but I felt nothing. It meant nothing to me anymore. I frowned, prying his fingers off one by one. "You don't love Karen? You defended her to a point where you couldn't tell right from wrong. No matter what happened, I was always the one in the wrong, the one to be punished. Karen was always the innocent one. You don't have to pretend to be devoted to me while loving her." He looked desperate. "I got your voice recorder. I did a DNA test. Karen is an imposter. Both she and your father have been locked in the dungeon now. They will pay for every wound they inflicted on you, tenfold." He paused, his gaze dropping from mine. "I also found out Karen was the one who hung you on the side of that building. And she manipulated your father into having you whipped in the dungeon. I only intended to lock you up for 3 days. I never meant to hurt you." My heart ached with a pain far deeper than the whip marks on my back. All the unfairness and suffering came flooding back, and the scars on my back began to sting as if they were fresh. Tears blurred my vision, but I swallowed them back, refusing to let him see my vulnerability. "It was all Karen, so what?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. He pulled me into a fierce embrace, his arms wrapping around me like a cage. So, Sarah, stop being angry. Let's forget all the unpleasant things and start over, okay? Chapter 8. Macro POV. Sarah didn't melt into my embrace. Her body was a rigid line, and her brow was still creased in pain. What's wrong? Did I hurt you? I asked, immediately releasing my hold. She smirked coldly, and, in one fluid motion, slid the sheer fabric from her shoulders. The breathtaking curves of her body were once again on full display, the sight of them a raw, physical hunger I had known well. How many times had I been lost in this body with a desperate passion? A low groan caught in my throat. I wanted to step forward, to kiss every inch of her, to possess her once more. But she slowly turned her back to me. She turned away slowly, and the world stopped. A cold dread washed over me as I saw the scars covering her back. My eyes were seared as if by a flame, and I had to turn away, a choking pain seizing my chest. My eyes darted away as if they were seared by a flame. A jolt of shame and horror surged through me. My heart hammered against my ribs, a dull, suffocating ache. After a moment, I forced myself to look again. It took me a while to find the courage to look at her again. Her once flawless skin was marred by a web of angry, raised marks. The intersecting lines felt like physical cuts, tearing at my heart with every breath. I stared at the brutal evidence of my neglect until my heart ached so fiercely it felt like it might stop. Just as the agony became unbearable, she pulled the sheer fabric back over her shoulders, covering the damage. She turned back to me, and a smile, a cold, brittle smile, curved her lips. You think I'm just throwing a tantrum? Have you felt the pain? The torment I went through? Her voice was calm, but each word was a razor-sharp shard of ice. I was left dangling off the side of a building 40 stories up and you, knowing my fear of heights, said it was minor discipline. When I exposed Karen for plagiarizing my thesis, a moment where I was simply fighting for what was right, you were ready to turn your rage on me. When Karen fell down the stairs, and it was her own doing, you refused to believe me. You wouldn't even listen to my story. And in the dungeon, if you had just taken 2 steps closer, you would have seen I was covered in my own blood. But you, my love, casually told me that it was all for my own good. Why did I need to be disciplined? All I ever did was fight for what was fair, for what was right, against Karen's lies and schemes. You say you love me, Macro? I have 1,000 scars on my back, and not a single one of them proves it. To me, that kind of love is worthless. A silent tear slipped down her cheek, and it felt like it was carving a new scar on my heart. My legs felt like they were made of lead, and I had to brace myself against a nearby palm tree to keep from collapsing. I knew most of the truth before I got here, but hearing the words from her, so plain and so raw, was 1,000 times more painful than any report. Every single word was soaked in her blood. I've always believed I could control everything. The family, the business, everyone around me. But for the first time, I felt utterly powerless. Sarah was slipping away, and I couldn't stop her. This feeling was alien, and it terrified me. My hands were shaking. It took everything in me to speak. I fumbled for the words. I'm sorry, Sarah. I know I failed you. I'll believe you. I promise. Please. Just give me one more chance. I swear I'll love you properly this time. She settled back into her beach chair and picked up her juice. Her smile was as radiant as ever, but her eyes were cold. Tell me, she said, her voice soft. If this cup were to break, could you ever make it whole again? She took a slow sip. I'm happy now. You should go. I turned and walked away, feeling like a broken man. I had never experienced such a crushing defeat. Was I really that terrible? I asked my assistant. He hesitated. A little, boss. Just tell me the truth. It was obvious that Sarah loved you, but your unwavering bias toward the fake Karen, it hurt her, again and again. He paused, his gaze thoughtful. A woman's love isn't measured in cars and jewelry, boss. I stopped. Then what is it measured in? Your love, boss. And that is what you never gave her. I felt the blood in my veins turn to ice, a dull ache spreading through me until it filled every corner of my body. I was losing her. The thought wrapped around me like poisonous vines, but I tore them apart before they could tighten their grip. I ruled everything around me. Nothing, no one, ever slipped beyond my control. I rushed to Sarah's apartment. The moment she opened the door, I forced my way inside. I dropped to one knee, thrusting the flowers and a massive diamond ring toward her. Sarah, I can't let you walk away. Whatever you want, I'll make it yours. All that I have, all that I am, it's yours, if you come back to me. Her beautiful face tightened with pain. She fell silent for a moment, as if holding back her rising frustration. Macro. Her voice was so calm it made my heart tremble. Back in those dark days, I thought I could put myself back together, thought I could heal. But you keep pouring salt into the wound. We ended a long time ago. She looked at me, her expression steady. I know you could lock me away, use your power to trap me at your side. But all you'd have is a body without a soul. Chapter 9. Seraphina POV. I watched him stand there, a defeated look in his eyes. It was a look I had never seen on him before. He stood for what felt like an eternity, before slowly turning to leave. But he paused, looked back, a flicker of hope in his gaze. Are you truly happy now? His voice was a raw, aching whisper. I smiled, a wide, genuine smile, and nodded. Happier than ever. The light in his eyes flickered and died. His voice dropped, becoming a low, broken rasp. All right, be happy. And if you ever run into trouble, promise me you'll tell me. He was gone. His assistant, a ghost in my inbox, kept me updated. My father's business empire had been completely stripped away by Macro, with all profits now flowing directly into my accounts. My parents were moved into a modest apartment, living off Macro's allowances. Karen had been taken out to the countryside by Macro's people, and she never returned. Based on their usual methods, I could probably guess what became of her, but I didn't care enough to ask. Macro never pressured me again. Now, the only sign of him came on birthdays or holidays. A message on my phone, a carefully chosen gift. Rumors swirled about potential engagements, but years went by, he never married, never appeared in dating gossip columns. Thanks to the inheritance from my father, I had become comfortably wealthy on my own. I ran a gallery, keeping busy, my days filled with work and satisfaction. For the first time in years, I was truly happy. The end. 1/1. Chapter 6. I'll turn the evidence in too, but after she has the baby, okay? That's my child, after all. +25 bonus. Melissa, who had been with me the whole time, spoke up. Gwen's parents passed away early, and I'm like a mother to her. If you don't sign, I'll have no problem making sure you're blacklisted from the entire medical field. And I'll have my son take the evidence and witnesses to the police right now. In the end, Derek signed. He agreed to leave with nothing and said he'd start looking for a new place to live in the next few days. As he reached the door, I called out to him. For the sake of our years as husband and wife, there's something you should know. From the previous tests, the infertility issue was yours. I kept it from you because I was afraid you couldn't handle it. The hospital still has the records. You can go check them yourself. His face turned pale instantly. He opened his mouth to speak, but Mike had come in to force him out. After another period of recovery, Mike took me to a rehabilitation center abroad for physical therapy. Other than him and Melissa, no one knew where I was. It was mainly to avoid Derek. Ever since he found out the baby Serena was carrying wasn't his, he had tried to find me several times. When he was stopped outside, he would shout endlessly, "Sweetheart, I beat that cow up badly. I even beat her so hard that she lost the baby. Sweetheart, I handed over the evidence of her murdering my mum to the police. But I was too late, and she ran. Don't worry, I'll make sure she gets what she deserves. I can't be a doctor anymore, sweetheart. From now on, I'll stay home and take care of you, okay? Please, just let me see you." The end. And that's a wrap on today's reading here at Booked for Drama. If you felt anything, rage, swoon, second-hand heartbreak, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow drama lovers. If you have any requests, drop them in the comments. Until next time, keep reading, and keep the drama on the page.